So its mission was founded by Sir Thomas Gresham, who was Queen Elizabeth I's financial advisor and who also been a financial advisor to Queen Mary, Edward VI and Henry VIII. It's quite a record because very few people lasted that long in the service of all four of those Tudor monarchs without losing their head somewhere along the way. But he was a real expert. He was a terrific financier. He worked for the Crown in Antwerp, which is the big cloth exchange, the big cloth market. He's said to have smuggled back some arms for Queen Elizabeth in bundles of cloth. So he was very much trusted, and he became extremely rich. And he left his ownership of the Royal Exchange, which he built on a model of the Antwerp Exchange. He left that, the rent from that, to fund a college. And this came into operation when his widow finally died. So it was set up in 1596 and began working in 1597. And Gresham stipulated that there should be free lectures. All the lectures should be free for the citizens of London. And to remember, there's no university in London until the 19th century. There's just Oxford and Cambridge in England, and then the four medieval Scottish universities. So he thought that London needed an institution of higher education. And so for a long time, that was Gresham College. Well, the 7 professorships established by Sir Thomas Gresham lasted until the 1980s, unaltered and unchanged. And in the 1980s, there was a wholesale shake-up of the universities in London. There was a reorganisation of London University, and some of the smaller colleges were merged into some of the larger ones. And there's also a lot of discussion about incorporating Gresham into the City University. But this, fortunately, I think, ran into the sands. In the end, the Mercers and the corporation did not want Gresham's professorship simply to become departments of a larger institution. So it was refounded, essentially. And so in 1985, it became fully independent. New arrangements were made for supporting it. In 1985, the provostship was set up as the chief position managing the academic affairs of Gresham College. And at the same time, the Mercers Corporation, at the same time, the Mercers Company established a chair of commerce, which is now a professorship of business, to even up the numbers of professorships, 4 from the corporation and 4 from the Mercers, and to introduce a professorship that carried on and strengthened Gresham's tradition of looking to practical application of knowledge as well as knowledge in its purer forms. So that's continued more recently with 2 contrasting professorships which are funded from outside. The Professorship of Information Technology, which is supported by the Worshipful Company of Information Technologists, and that I think we've succeeded in getting a very eminent specialist in the field to become the first professor. That's for 3 years in the first instance. And the second one is a Professorship of the Environment, which is funded by the Frank Jackson Foundation. And again, we have a leading environmentalist from Oxford who's giving lectures about various aspects of environmental policy. And indeed is persuading us to try and improve our own record in terms of our carbon footprint and so on, which has to be a good thing. So I think Sir Thomas Gresham would have approved that we're continuing to explore and expand kind of cutting-edge knowledge in highly relevant subjects. Well, like almost every higher education institution in Britain, particularly Oxford and Cambridge, Gresham went through rather a sticky patch, a long sticky patch. Of course, there were upheavals in the 17th century, though it was still functioning reasonably well then. But in the 18th century, a lot of the chairs are unoccupied for a long time, or if they were occupied, as with many professorships in Oxford and Cambridge, the incumbents took the money and didn't do very much. So it was really rather inactive, and it really began to revive in, I guess, the mid-19th century. Professors did give lectures. Charles Dickens was on record at having gone to one lecture I one could have fantasies about descending upon Gresham College in the 18th century and saying, "Come on, guys, get your act together." But in fact, circumstances told against it. I mean, frankly, I'm happiest at being provost now because I think Gresham has entered a golden age. It's more successful, more popular, more influential than it's ever been, and the professors are extremely eminent. And I go to some of their lectures, and they're absolutely fascinating.